Coming up on That Was the Moment.
I felt like I was stuck in this life. I had really stayed in this survival mode of all I have to do is check off this list. But I didn't really know what I was checking that list off for, except for that supposedly when I have all these things, I'm just going to magically turn up happy one day.
My guest today is Christina Smith. Christina is a life coach specializing in confidence and self-love in midlife, so that women can finally truly like themselves and how they show up for themselves and their relationships. She's helped people move through tough transitions in coaching and with her book, Inviting Shift. Thank you so much for being here today, Christina.
Thanks for having me.
So why don't we jump straight into it? And why don't you tell me about what life was like before your moment?
What I can remember is that when I was younger, my mother would tell me, "You're going to be happy one," because my childhood was pretty rocky and unhappy. And she kept telling me, "You're going to be happy one. You're going to be happy when you graduate college, when you get the job, when you have the husband, when you have the house and the kids and the blah, 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 blah," right? And I had checked all the boxes when I was in my mid to early 30s, and I was never more depressed and couldn't figure out why. Like, what was wrong with me? To the point where I was like crying on the way to work every day and shaming myself for not feeling grateful. I would ask myself, "What's wrong with you that you can't feel grateful? Your life is so much better than it was when you were a kid. How can you not be positive and happy and all this joy? And why are you so depressed?" And so I felt a lot of shame about not being able to do great gratitude like everybody else could do gratitude. And it didn't get any better, even when I shamed myself, which is how I kind of learned how to do things. And so at some point, I had to go see a therapist. And when I saw the therapist, that's when I had my moment. But how I felt before that was stuck. I
Mm-hmm.
felt like I was stuck in this life. I hadn't really explored what it was that I wanted, right? I had really stayed in this survival mode of all I have to do is check off this list. All I have to do is check off this list. But I didn't really know what I was checking that list off for, except for that supposedly when I have all these things, I'm just going to magically turn up happy one day. But I sacrificed so much to make that happen that I wasn't happy on the way, that's for sure. I was kind of really had my head, I either worked full time with two full-time jobs or went to school full time and worked full time just to make sure that I could get to that place where I could support myself and I would magically, poof, be happy. I
What are some of the things that you sacrificed?
didn't hang out with a lot of friends. I was a single mom when I was younger, so I really sacrificed a lot of time with my son and watching him raise because I wanted to make sure I could check all the boxes and provide him with a really great home. And I thought that that's what it had to do with was paying for the big house and the car and everything that he needed. And and yeah, so I sacrificed a lot of connection time. I sacrificed making a lot more friends because I was too busy all the time to do things with them. So I lost a lot of friends along the way and really like building really great connections with anybody. I was really kind of isolated, like a horse with its blinders on, is what it reminds me of. Yeah, so I sacrificed life. I kept being told I would be happy when I got there. So I was like, "Ooh, I just got to sacrifice life. I got to sacrifice being happy now, and then I'll be happy forever." And who knew that when I got there, I wasn't going to be happy.
And it's really interesting because we are all brought up to do that. If you work hard now, it's going to pay off later. And sometimes
Mhm.
it doesn't. What you're working hard at isn't filling up your soul, so it doesn't pay off. I think that's just a really common thing because I've heard it with so many other of my guests. They had that same, on the outside, life looks amazing because you've got that house, you've got the car, you've got this, you've got the relationship. I myself was like that in my 30s, thinking I've got everything I could ever want, but why? Why is this emptiness just following me everywhere? Take us to your moment.
Yeah, so well, there was a couple of moments, so maybe I'll combine them because I think that they're both pretty impactful. So I came from a family where my mother was the firstborn American, and that's where this hard work ethic came from, right? As I always
Yeah.
believe, like immigrants, they're just like American dream. You work hard enough, you can make it, and if you're not making it, it's because you're not working hard enough, right?
Mm.
And so therapy wasn't something that we really thought about. However, I got to the point where my husband to be was like, maybe you need to talk to someone. And I was like, oh, well, maybe one day. And then my son, his father moved across the country and his grades got really bad. So I was like, oh, he needs a therapist. So of course I took my son to the therapist because that only makes sense, right? About a year in, she said to me, Christina, I think you should see a therapist. And I was just like, oh yeah, I know I probably should, and I will, I will. And a few months later, she asked me again, did you ever go see a therapist? And I said, oh, well, I don't have time for that, even though I'm surely have time to bring my son, right, and sit there in the waiting room. And she said, well, Christina, when you're better, he will be too.
Mhm.
Ooh, oh, so you're telling me I'm having an impact on my son. And that is like, that's the thing that got me into therapy. And really changed my life because I wouldn't do it for myself, but God forbid that I am hurting my child by not taking care of my own stuff. And I didn't really figure out the impact of that. And then when I started going to therapy, a really great therapist said to me, what is it that you want, Christina? And I was like, what do you mean? I want to be a good wife. I want to be a good mom. I want to be, no, 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 no. What is it that you want for you? Like, not a role for someone else, not pleasing someone else. What do you want for you? And that was my moment where I was like, I had never really thought about that. I thought about what I should do. I
Mhm.
thought about what other people expected me to do. I thought about what other people would think about the choices I was making. But I never really thought about, like, what did I actually want for myself? I didn't know. My mother had made this path out. I just thought I was supposed to want that path. And so looking back now, I can easily say, of course, that was the life that my mom thought that if she had been able to go to college and get the corporate job and all that, like her life would have been so much easier and simpler. But she was only looking from her perspective. And I never really felt into my own body or my own knowing to be like, what is it that I actually want? What would actually excite me?
Mm.
And I didn't realize up until that point, like everything that I wanted was because I thought I was supposed to want it. I was supposed to want the Caribbean vacations. I was supposed to want the big house and want an even bigger one. And in reality, it's like the opposite for me. I actually want a really small house, big property, but small house. And I actually don't want to work for a corporate gig. Yeah, for my mom, it was security because it was a weekly paycheck. But for me, it felt like prison. I mean,
Mm.
that's what it felt like. And there was nothing wrong with the job that I had. It felt so wrong. And that's what my body was telling me for a year as I was crying on the way to work. But I wasn't intuitive enough in my own knowing to be able to say, actually, Mom, those things won't make me happy, but I think I know what will. And even when I did step out, even when I went into business for myself, my mom was sending me unemployment ads for like years. You must need a job. Don't you know the paycheck and the benefits and whatnot? And so, yeah, she still doesn't understand, and that's okay. I mean, that's
Mm.
okay that she doesn't understand. But to me, it was really powerful, and took me many years to answer, like, what is it that I want? Because I had to decondition myself in
Mhm.
so many ways to not take in effect, like what is supposed to be the thing you're supposed to do. Or in my mom's case, she really was like, you're gonna be a doctor or a lawyer, right? There was no, what do you want to be when you grow up? You're gonna be a doctor or a lawyer, right? Because you're smart. And so you should do one of those because I heard they make a lot of money. They also die young, but
And so what are some of the things that you did to try and find what you want?
Mm,
Because
yeah.
I like,
Well, yeah.
for me as well, it's easy for me to tell you what I don't want, right?
Yes.
I can tell you straight
Mhm.
away. I don't even have to think about it.
Yeah.
But when I asked myself the same questions, it was really hard. And I
Mhm.
love hearing what other people did to kind of find that path to where they are
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. And I hear you so much because my clients today, they often come to me and I'm like, well, what three things do you want in your life? And it's always starts with not this conflict at my job, not this
Yeah.
relationship problem that I'm having, not
Yeah.
this estrangement. Yeah, it's always not this, right? And that's not clarity, but it at least starts to give us, it starts to eliminate some things, right? So it's somewhat helpful. But yeah, clarity is so much more than not this. There's processes I have today, but what did I do back then is I went to therapy for a long time. I did a ton of journaling, like
Mhm.
journal after journal of trying to figure out who am I, what actually excites me, what do I actually like to do? Because I didn't know after 20 years of just working and working and working, I had no hobbies. I
Yeah.
hadn't read a book in years. I mean, unless it was work related. So I didn't really know. And one of the things I did was after I went to a women's weekend on the suggestion of my therapist and some women that I knew, I bought a paint set. Now, I had never painted in my life. I always wanted to paint, but I never did because since I was in high school, at least, because I had some really terrible art teachers that were really harsh. And so I was convinced I wasn't an artist, but for some reason my intuition was like, you need to paint something. And I was like, all right, we're going to listen to the intuition. Let's just do it. So I sat and I stared at this canvas for a year. A year, I had all the things and I just stared at it and I was afraid to step into it.
Mm.
And then a friend of mine was like, Christina, what do you think you're doing? Creating a masterpiece? That's not what this is about. You just take the colors and you throw them on the canvas and you swish them around. Like, this is not rocket science. So you don't have to be Michelangelo. Like, you can just enjoy yourself. And that was like the beginning of me going, oh, I can do things just to enjoy them. Like, they don't have to be productive. They don't have to
And they don't have to
produce
be
something.
amazing. And they don't have to
Yes,
be,
they
you
don't
can
have to
just, yeah.
produce something that I'm going to keep for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Like it's okay just to experience things
Mm.
and try them and not get hard on yourself just because you're not a Michelangelo. Like it's fine that I'm not. And I can still paint things. Like they don't have to be anything. And just the process of it was enjoyable. So it was me learning to take a breath and learn how not to be productive so that I could allow imagination to come
Mhm.
out so I could really feel into things rather than just try to I'm really like point A, point B, how do we get there? Like so instead of doing all of that rush, 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 I had to actually slow down and be like, what do we like about today? What was great about this trip?
Mm.
What was wonderful about that project that I just did? What parts do I like? And really start looking at what are my gifts? What are my strengths? What is it that I actually want out of life? What am I actually good at? And I had always was taught that like you have to go fix your flaws, like the things that's not right with you. You should really just go keep fixing them. And now I'm like, actually, you should lean into your gifts and your
Mhm.
strengths and not worry too much about, I mean, unless those parts of you are hurting someone or yourself. Otherwise, lean into your
Mhm.
gifts and strengths. Not one of us are going to be perfect. And so all of those things combined, the journaling, the therapy, the trying new things, slowing down, feeling into my body. Those were all things that were essential for me to really start being, even giving myself permission to look at things that I enjoyed that were not productive.
Yeah, that's amazing. And just trying something and not being good at it. If you are a high achiever,
Mm,
it's hard to then go, I'm going to do this and it might be really bad, but I'm going to do it anyway. Because
Yeah.
you feel like you have to do it well or don't do it at all.
Hmm. Oh yeah. Or my son, he like first time he tries something, if he's not good at it all, he doesn't want to do it again.
Yeah.
And it's like well, nobody's good at things the first time that they do them, right? Like we gotta try it out. And why can't we just do things for fun or play or whatever? Like why does it always have to like make money, be productive, be something I would use, do, or I mean, there's always got to be like some other value rather than I just enjoy it. When
Joy.
we look
Yeah.
animals like they do things out of survival or joy and that's
Yeah.
it, right? They're either looking for food or playing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really nice way of looking at it.
Hmm.
And so how did things change once you started, I guess, spending more time with yourself and
Yeah.
figuring out what Christina likes? How did things change for you?
Oh boy. Well, I mean, luckily around the same time I got really sick. I mean, that sounds like a weird thing to say, but I had like some serious gut issues and I couldn't figure out what was going on there. So after a couple of years, I thought, let me just go to health coaching school. Maybe Pepsis and Doritos for breakfast isn't the best thing. Let me see if there's anything I can do to change this situation. And so I became a health coach, and that helped a lot. Still had a lot to do with the way that I was treating myself at like a machine, because getting sick was like one of the biggest wake up calls, because it was like I couldn't just get up and do everything. I was actually bedbound for sometimes months
Mm.
at a time. And so it really helped me in the slow down. When you ask the universe for something like, hey, help me see how to slow down, be very careful with how you ask because the universe will say, absolutely, no problem.
Yeah. You're
Here's what
staying in
that could be.
bed. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You'll know how to slow down, not be productive now. So that actually helped me in that way. And it helped me start thinking about how people change and make transformation. And so that's really changed into that's what I do today is I help women with confidence and transform their lives so that they can stop people pleasing and get really into their own self-care and their self-validation
Mm.
so they can be healthy and really love the second half of their lives.
I loved what you said at the start when your therapist told you that you need to work on yourself. It's all good taking your son to therapy, and I'm sure it's helped him, but doing it for yourself. I find that's something my friends that are mums will often say, oh, I don't have time for that because I'm a mum and I have to do this and this and this. And well, isn't it better for your child if you are healthy and you are happy? Isn't that going to make
But
your
the moment
child?
that their child isn't, right? It's
Yeah,
like, boom, you're at the doctor. Boom, you're, at the school trying to fix the whatever the problem might be.
yeah.
It's like amazing how we make time for it when it's for someone else or especially our children. But yeah, which just goes to show you we do have the time.
Hmm.
We're
Yeah,
just not making it a priority. And it really has been different, right? I mean, I wouldn't have the connections I have today without the therapy that I had. I didn't realize there was so many shadows going around that I was like projecting in bad ways, ways that I didn't want to show up. And I don't think I would have ever noticed that without an actual therapist. And so even though I'm a coach, I still think therapy has its place too, and coaching has its place. It's just we need support. We can't always do it alone, and that's okay. It's okay to need support. And it's changed my life. Like there's been a ripple effect, right? That the people around me can feel it because I show up differently, and our relationships are easier and to maintain and deeper. It's so essential to listen to what it is that you need and actually give it to yourself. Give yourself permission to be a little selfish and put yourself first sometimes so that because we're also modeling it, right? I mean, that's the important part is like, so if I were to tell my son I don't have time for therapy, then what is that telling him?
yeah,
He's going to say the same thing. And maybe he's going to say, well, I don't have time either. I got all these
yeah,
things to do.
yeah.
But modeling self-care is like, I'm showing him it's okay for him to take care of himself, which is, of course, what I think mothers want their children to take care of themselves and do it in a good way. But we don't really show them how. We're just like kind of wave our finger at them and like, you should really take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, exhausting ourselves while people pleasing.
Yeah. And by you not going to therapy, you're showing him that it's not important.
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely not
Because,
important for me, just
yeah.
him, right? And
Yeah.
so that could even make him feel like there was even something more broken with him, that it's appropriate for him, but it's not appropriate for me.
And how has your relationship with yourself changed through all of this?
Oh, I like myself a lot. I actually, I'm part of a women's organization called Woman Within, and I don't know, like 14 years ago, I went through a weekend and they do this visualization with your child and your wise woman. And just this year, I did it again. And the first time I did it, my inner child was like angry. She didn't want anything to do with me. She didn't trust me. She wanted to scream. And this year, for the first time, she just walked up and she's like, I'm good. You're good. Like, life is awesome. Like, I can't even believe that other women respect you the way that they do, or that you have so many connections, or that you have so many friends and you have this life that you want. And you have friends, like, I'm pretty much a nomad. So I have friends all over the country and circles I could join at any time. And my inner child was just like, wow, this is all we really wanted, was to like really like ourselves and be okay in the presence of other women and really be able to shine our light in the presence of other women. And yeah, like I'm getting tears thinking about it, but it was such a beautiful visualization to see, and for her to be so happy and be like, you got this, like we're doing awesome. And she's never shown up quite that happy or confident before.
Oh, that's so amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like definitely like being able to see and feel the difference that all the work that you've been doing has made to you.
Yeah, yeah, it stopped my overthinking. I don't do a lot of people pleasing. I'm pretty confident in who I am and how I show up. Most of the time. Of course, we're not perfect.
I know. And hey, this is life. This is what happens. And it's all about learning.
Mhm.
And so what is life like for you now?
We've recently done one more cross-country moving trip, and so that's been challenging. Our living circumstances are different than they were before. We live with other people, and so that's challenging. And at the same time, what's really beautiful is I'm able to handle it much like I couldn't even imagine having made this decision 10 years ago. It
Mm.
never would have happened. Like it would have been hard and it'd have been a lot more of a fight. But this time it was just like I just kind of succumbed to, this is where we needed to be at this point for family reasons. And I think I'm handling it very, very well. Like I'm not really great with change. So just the fact that my husband feels supported through this rather than him feeling like he has to support me through all of it. And we can actually have a relationship where we're both being supported in a good way. And just the way that I keep handling new things that come along and that I don't pre-worry. I've like banned pre-worrying about things. So when I was living in Colorado, which is before, I kept saying to myself, I'm not going to worry about what comes up when we're going to move to Virginia because I can have that problem and I can adapt when I get there. But for now, I'm not going to think about that. Whereas, like years ago, I would have like pre-thought all these problems that could have
Mm.
happened and like put so much focus on them. I almost would have manifested them
Yeah.
instead of just kind of going with the flow and doing my best, right? And then checking in with myself. Am I showing up the way that I want to? Yeah. I mean, some of the circumstances are shitty. Some of the conversations are hard. And yet at the same time, I'm showing up the way that I want to. I'm doing what I can control is what I'm controlling. And everything else I'm just kind of observing and allowing it to be.
It sounds like you found that authentic way for you and what Christina wants and who Christina wants to be, as
Yeah.
opposed to what the world or your mum or society or everyone else is telling you what you should be.
Oh yeah, I have this really strong inner adolescence that comes out when somebody's like, you should or you could, and I go, or
Mm.
what? Or what? Like, unless you can give me a severe consequence, I will do whatever I feel like doing. But I can feel her come up every time somebody tries to should me or tell me what I could be doing instead. It's like, or what? Or
Yeah.
what? What's going to
Yeah.
happen? Nothing. That's what's going to happen. I always answer things with, that doesn't feel right for me right now. Because they can't really argue with that. You know what I mean? Like, what are they going to tell you that I don't feel that way? I do.
Mm.
How do you know what I feel? Like,
Mm.
and so when you say it that way, like boundaries are so much easier because there's no argument for that. Like,
Yeah.
we're going to tell you to go against your feelings or tell you you don't feel that way? No, of course not. So that just doesn't feel like it aligns with me right now.
And I think even just taking that pause, right? Instead of just automatically, yeah, yeah, I'll help you with that. I'll do that. Yep, 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 yep.
Hmm.
Just taking
Oh,
that
yeah.
pause and going, checking in with yourself to be like, do I want to do this?
Hmm.
Or as you said, does it feel good for you, other than just reacting?
Yeah, there's a great story. I don't know where I picked this up, so forgive me for whoever wrote this or put it out there. But apparently, there's a man, like a Japanese man, and he has, every time he has a new business contact, he goes and has dinner with them. And he can tell by the way that his food settles in his belly if this is somebody he wants to do business with or not. That's what he goes by every time. If the food doesn't settle, he's not doing business with you. I mean, you better hope that you're at a restaurant where they're not making him food sick, I guess. But yeah,
That's
he knows that he's going to not do business if it doesn't feel right, and only if his food can settle with this person having dinner with him will he. And that's what we all should do. I mean, not maybe
yeah.
not dinner, but we should all check in with our body. Like, how does this choice feel like in my body before I answer? Before my brain tries to justify the million ways that I can go do it and I should just go do it. What does it actually feel like in my body? Because I'm real tired of saying yes and then later on feeling
Oh,
real angry
hating
and
it. Yeah.
resentful about stuff. I'm kind of beyond that. I don't want to
Yeah.
do that to myself anymore. And I'm the one doing it to myself, so it can be stopped at any moment.
Yeah. What advice would you give to your younger self?
Probably love yourself more is the phrase that always comes up is just love yourself more. Love yourself more than the love that you think you need from other people. Love yourself more than giving up what you know to be right for yourself so that others can be happy. Love yourself more. And I know that some people might think that that's selfish, but we don't really teach, especially girls, to do that. We say good girl, and what does that mean except you're showing up the way I expect you to?
Yeah.
And so I would have loved for my inner child to know that she can create her own path if she just really believes in herself and loves herself first, gives herself permission to be that thing that was called selfish when we were young, to really love herself.
That's beautiful advice.
Mm.
If you could be remembered by one word, what would that word be?
I could be remembered by compassion, I think.
And
Would be a good
what does compassion mean for you?
compassion means I sign off all my emails with be gentle with your humanness. And that's really what it means to me, whether that's me or you or whoever, for us just to be compassionate and kind with our humanness. Because I think so often we can think that we're robots and we don't need self-care and we don't need to make choices for ourselves, that we can just keep going and add things onto the list, earn our worth, that we forget that we're already worthy and we're just human and it's uncomfortable and that's okay.
Yeah, that's amazing. Do you have anything else that you'd like to share with us before we sign off?
Usually I end with the be gentle with your humanness. So I mean that's what I guess if anybody gets anything out of this, I hope that they go for that part. And they start asking, what is it that I actually want? And take all the roles out of it. What do you want for yourself? What do you crave for yourself? And use your imagination because it's not going to be easy at first, but You want to be a clown, write that down, like
Yeah,
whatever, journal about it. There might be gifts in there that actually have something for you. So I just want people to remember to be gentle with themselves and use their imaginations.
amazing. Thank you so much. I'm also going to be putting all your contact details in the show notes so people can
Right.
get in touch and find out more about what you do. But thank you
Awesome.
so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. I hope today's conversation empowers you and inspires you to know that no matter your current situation, your life can change too. All it takes is a moment. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and share it with a friend. And if you would like to support the podcast, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/that was the moment. Until next time, be present in each moment because you never know when your moment will come or when you have the gift of being a moment for someone else. Take care.